Welcome to the Adorned Women podcast. Our goal is to inspire you with new stories each week featuring women of faith from all over the world and all walks of life. Through weekly discussions with each sister in Christ, we hope to give you a glimpse into who they are and how their lives have been transformed by the gospel. We're all in this journey together, so let's be inspired together. Hello, Adorned Women. Welcome back to the Adorned Women podcast. I'm your host, Alicia, and this week's guest is teacher, educator, and YWAM worker, Chimène Jomo from Cameroon. As you'll hear in our conversation, Chimène surrendered her life to God 25 years ago, going from a general knowledge of the Savior of the world to a personal relationship with the Lord of her life. Since then, she's taken on life with God by her side, always depending on Him to see her through. Something I really loved about today's conversation was how well-rounded it was. You'll hear about a lot of different aspects of Chimène's life, and I think there's something in there for everyone, something that'll connect you and make you feel like, yeah, that's like me. I know I found that to be true. My hope is that as you connect with Chimène today and hear about her life and her perspective, that you'll be inspired to take a step towards God in your own life. Maybe it's the way she uses her gifts to share Christ that inspires you, or maybe it's the way that she relies on Him when stressful situations come up. Whatever the case, I can't wait to introduce you to my new friend, Chimène Jomo. Enjoy today's conversation. Hi, welcome, Chimène. We're excited to have you on today.
Thank you so much, Alicia. I'm very excited to be with you guys.
Yeah, we want to start off the same way we always do, just getting a glimpse of where you're from and what your day-to-day life is like. So could you start us off by just giving us a picture of where it is you live and what it's like to live there?
Awesome. So I live in Cameroon, which is a country in Central West Africa, near the coast, near the Atlantic Ocean. I live in the capital city called Yaoundé, and it's a beautiful, big city. More than 2 million people live in here. Very green. My country is below the equator, so it's tropical, lots of rain. We have a big raining season and a small raining season. So lots of trees and plants and lots of fruits. The city is very busy. It's growing very, very fast because lately we have been going through some sorts of war, so people are leaving the war zone to come to the city, so it's growing and it's very crowded and loud. Lots of cars and motors. There's this transportation mean that we use here is just motorbikes, and these are very fast but also very dangerous. So that makes the city very loud and very just very colorful because people from all over the country. My country is very diverse. Lots of ethnic groups, lots of different tribal languages. So you have that diversity in the city. The houses, I would say, we have some French-looking houses because we were colonized by France and also England and German. So we have those old French-looking houses or German-looking houses, which make our city a bit unique. So you will see that, especially in downtown and in some parts of the town. It's a beautiful place to live if you like noise.
I can imagine. Yeah, it sounds like it's pretty crazy there. So where do you find yourself in all of that? What kind of things do you have to spend your time on day to day, whether it's work or family or just being out and about? What kind of things do you do?
I take a lot of time helping my family because I live in a kind of like a family living situation. I live with my mom and my adopted daughter, Manuela. She's 13 years old. And right now I have a German girl living with us too. She is an exchange student from Germany. She's with us for 1 year. She's been here already 5 months. And two older nieces and one uncle. So lots of family around. So I use a lot of time just organizing the house because I want to help my mom with that. My dad passed away 2 years ago, and she's pretty busy with a lot of family things that she needs to take care of. So I try to lighten her burden by taking care of the running of the house with food and house chores like that. So that takes a lot of time. I do that and helping my nieces. I hang out with them because I want to um, influence them to be Christians. Two of them are not really like strong in their faith, so I hang out with them. I take them out. We have girls' time, things like that. And I also take a lot of time. I also use a lot of time in my personal activities because I'm a missionary teacher. I train teachers, so that takes me a lot of time to prepare for teachings and speaking engagements and things like that. And I also like walking and exercising and visiting friends. I have a lot of friends and family members too. So yeah, the day goes by pretty fast.
Yeah, I'd love to hear more about some of those things. But before we get to those, I want to come back to a question. I love hearing all of these stories of testimonies, but what is your testimony? How did you meet God and how did you end up surrendering your life to Him?
Okay, thank you for taking me back 25 years. So I was 23 when I gave my life to the Lord, and that was 25 years ago. And it was a journey, of course, and I guess everyone has his or her own journey, but mine, I would say, started, of course, before I was born, like everybody. God knew me, He loved me, and He had a plan for my life. But from what I can remember, when I was 11 years old, my mother, who is very hospitable and she loves parties, she decided for me to take my first communion in a Catholic church because in my country we have three main religions. We have the Catholic, the Protestant, and the Muslims. And usually everybody has to belong to one of those, even if it's in a nominal way, like even if it's not like very serious. So my parents call themselves Christians just because they're not Muslims, but they were not really practicing that. And my mother decided for me to take my first communion, and I did. And then after that, I was 11 years old, and after that, I started going to the Catholic Church, where I didn't really have a personal relationship with the Lord. I just was introduced to God, and I'm very thankful for that because that was like the beginning of my story with the Lord. But I was introduced to Him as my Savior. So I knew there was a God in heaven, the Creator, and He loved me. But He was in heaven and I was down here, so I could just live my life however I wanted to. I just needed to make sure I don't commit any big sin. Just never kill anyone. Just okay. So I could lie and steal and do little things here and there, but as long as I'm not caught, it was fine. So, but little by little, God in His goodness and in His grace and in His divine plan started providing really serious Christian people around me. So at school, I would find myself be drawn to Christian friends, and it was wonderful because I could look in both of our lives and I saw that we were different. Even though we call ourselves Christians, but I could see that they had a very intimate relationship with God in the way they were talking about God. And I just knew God as, God up there and I'm down here. But they, like one of my friends, her name is Leo, and she will we're talking about God as her best friend. And I was like, wow, how can God be your best friend? So those are things that God used to start revealing himself to me deep. And so I started asking. I didn't even know how to pray, but I remember somehow praying and saying, God, I want to know you like my friends. I want to have that kind of relationship with you. I want to know that I know that I belong to you, because then I started having all those questions about my future. Like where would I go if I die? Where am I really coming from? And things like that. So like very important questions. And God just kept drawing his my heart to him, and every year I will have like a very good friend who will add to that testimony of mine. And when I was 23 years old, I came to a point one day when I knew that it was the day of salvation. It's so amazing. Like the Bible says that in the book of Revelation, that God is like, I'm standing at the door and I'm knocking. Would you open? I felt like that day was the day for me to make the choice. And I did. Because I used to read tracts, evangelistic tracts. So I kind of knew how to surrender my life to the Lord. And I did. I prayed. And after that prayer, everything just changed. I remember even the way I would see things, the way I would be so sensitive to sin. I just knew that I was not the same person anymore. I started just reading the Bible and seeking people that were like me to have fellowship with them. So that's a bit of my story.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that testimony. I mean, I love the aspect of your testimony that it was not sudden. Some testimonies are sudden, some are dramatic, and some are miraculous, and those are incredible testimonies. But for some people, and this can be so relatable, it's simply going from knowledge that there is a God, there is a Savior of the world, to a surrender in your heart that Savior of the world is the Lord of my life. And so I love testimonies that have that kind of gradual growth and understanding, and then a change in the heart, because that's such an important aspect of our faith. So with that testimony, you mentioned, well, I guess before your testimony, you mentioned that you teach, you're a missionary teacher. Can you share a little bit about your teaching? And I guess we'll start with maybe a moment that made you realize that God had gifted you with teaching and that you really loved it.
Okay, awesome. So I was a missionary in YWAM, the Mission Denver, for 6 years. And at one point, I had to leave the country because of my visa. So I had to be out of Denver for 1 year. And I prayed and asked God what I should do. And I felt led to do a TESOL, which is a school to learn how to teach English to speakers of other languages. And it's fun because I had the choice between Texas and Hawaii. And I chose Hawaii. I'm glad I did. That's where I did my training. And so after my training, God led me to go teach English in Asia. So I was there for 1 year. I traveled through 8 countries in Southeast Asia, one of the best times of my life. Met all kinds of people and had many opportunities to teach. That's kind of where I developed that love for teaching, because I'm so grateful, because the people that I was teaching were so hungry to know the language. They were so humble and open, and just they gave their best to learn. So it was easy to teach. It's wonderful to teach when people want to learn. So I think that's something that grew that passion in me, particularly in Burma. I was in Burma, in Myanmar. It used to be called Burma, now it's Myanmar. So there, the students, they were just so amazed with how I was teaching. And I was not even like a good teacher, I think. I don't know. English is my second or third. I don't even know what language. But they were just like, oh, so that made me feel so confident. They really helped to build my confidence. And it's amazing because I still have good relationship with lots of them now. And that was 12 years ago. That was in 2008. Um, yeah, something that I loved doing with them was reading through some books because I had to choose. I had the choice to help them read, to help them read with one book of my choice. And one of my favorite books to read is The Purpose Driven Life by Rick Warren. And these were not Christians; these were Buddhist students. But since they wanted to learn the language, they wanted to learn how to read. They were open to my choice. So we would sit and we read together and discuss. And I just loved it. We discussed what they heard, what they thought of what they read, and it would give them practice in reading and in speaking. So yeah, that's something I so enjoyed, and that really grew my passion for teaching. So that's one. And one second thing that really excites me about teaching is the response also I get with my teachers, because now I train teachers, and I get also wonderful response from teachers. They are always so grateful and just they feel challenged. They feel like they have grown during our time together. So that really gives me a lot of joy and makes me want to keep going. So that's why I love teaching. I'm very thankful that God led me in this area of ministry.
Wow, I love that you were using a Christian book to minister to these students who are just trying to learn English, and you're able to use that. And, you know, yes, you classify yourself as a missionary, but that action, it wasn't necessarily, you know, nobody has to be in missions to be able to incorporate things like that into their day-to-day opportunities. So I love that you did that, and I love the testimony that is, and you still have relationships with those students. And yeah, I think that is so cool. I guess that is kind of a way you've seen God working through your teaching. That's kind of an opportunity God has given you. But do you have any stories of maybe a particular student or teacher where you really saw God working in their lives through just an opportunity you had to interact with them?
Yeah, thank you. I have many stories. I will choose one. Or two. So in Chad, which is north of my country, in Africa also, I trained a lot of teachers, and many teachers there share with me how the teaching just kind of revolutionized their lives. One of them, I remember, told me that he felt like a little kid. Like every morning he would be excited to come to school because the way we were teaching, he has never experienced that. The teaching that I share with them is called Educating for Life, and it's a teacher's training program for a year. And what we do is we help the teachers to understand God's heart for education. And we do that in showing them. So it's not much about just telling them, it's really leading them in the journey and sharing as we show. So one of the big things for us is to show love and acceptance to the teachers, because we want them to be able to show that to the classrooms, because that's a challenge in the part of in my country, in Africa. It's a challenge for teachers to show love and respect and acceptance to students, because they often feel like if they do so, they will be despised, they will not be respected. So they think you always have to be very mean with the students for them to respect you. And that's a big part of our teaching, is to show them that there needs to be balance. We can show the kids to respect us in loving them, in accepting them, in respecting them. So during our trainings, we really put an emphasis on how we treat our teachers. We just really go overboard in showing them love and respect. From day one, we just break all boundaries, because in the beginning, sometimes people are very, in my country, in Africa in general, there is hierarchies. So like the school founders will not want to just sit with the teachers because they feel like they are too high to do that. But in our teachings, in our trainings, we break those ways of thinking. And we want everyone to feel like they have to sell the same worth, the same value. So that teacher in Chad, he told me that he never felt that loved, that accepted, that respect from teachers like his entire life. And that just blew his mind. And that's one of the reasons he ran to our trainings. Another thing is the way we also use activities to train them. So the full day is not boring. Like from 8 a.m. to like, sometimes we finish at 7 p.m. and they will still be excited. No one wants to go home because they're just going from one fun activity to one fun activity, and they are learning. And that's what he said. He's like, I can't believe I'm playing and I'm learning at the same time. And we said, yeah, that's what we want you to be doing with your students. We want you to know that they can have fun as they are learning. Learning doesn't have to be sad and boring. So that's one. Another story is with a friend of mine. She became a friend, but before she was one of the teachers, one of the founders that I taught. After she finished her training with us, she was so blessed. She was so changed that she decided to make a lot of changes in her school. She is investing so much to keep her school clean and beautiful, because those are two values that we really insist on during our trainings, is that the teachers, the school founders, they need to create an environment that is beautiful, that is clean as much as possible for students, because that's something that we lack in a lot of schools here. And she has been really doing everything she can to keep her school that way. So that is very encouraging for me to see.
Yeah, I have a special place in my heart for teachers, because they have such an amazing platform to really change lives. And the great thing about being a teacher who is a servant of God is that it's more than a life. It's like, it's an eternity. It's a soul. And so to have that platform and to see fruit coming from it, I think is such a cool thing. And so thank you for sharing those stories. Thank you also for what you do. Of course, now I want to switch over a little bit and change gears. You mentioned kind of your unique family living situation right now. And, we were back on the topic of kind of just things that have shaped you and made you who you are. So I would love to revisit kind of your family and ask you to share how you grew up, what kind of family you grew up in, and then what it's like within your family right now.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. So my father, I mentioned earlier that he passed away almost 2.5 years ago. And he had 2 wives, because in my country there is polygamy. So a man can have more than a wife if he wants to. But the only thing is that he has to announce it from the beginning when he's doing the wedding in front of the civil servant, in front of the mayor, versus the mayor that officiates weddings here. So my dad, from the beginning, he decided that he wanted to have more than a wife, and he did. The first wife has 7 children, and my mother is the second wife, and she has 4 children. And then my dad also had some kids with other women that he didn't marry. So that makes a total of 14 of us kids. That's a big family. Um, it had a lot of challenges, that kind of family setting, because of course, as you can imagine, there's a lot of jealousies between the women. Growing up, my mom, she always felt threatened by the first wife, and same with the first wife, she felt threatened by the second wife. So that was not a good um, feeling for us kids, because we always felt torn, between having to be loyal to our mothers, and and that was not even that bad when we were little, even though at that time it seemed so bad. But then it got worse, sadly, as we grew older, and especially as my dad passed away, and now we are dealing with the uh, inheritance, like sharing all my dad's assets. That's been very stressful and sad, because there's a lot of lies and corruption and things like that involved, because of greed also, I would say. So yeah, that's a very tough situation that my family is living right now. And that's actually a prayer request for me, that the Lord will really intervene and bring his peace and love and reconciliation in our hearts and lives. It's been very difficult for everyone, I would say. So,
So, in the midst of this, I mean, on one hand, you have this joyful part of your life, this teaching, and I'm sure your adopted daughter is also a joy in your life, and I'm sure, yeah, parts of family life are enjoyable, but this is definitely a stressor, and I think all of us have that. Some parts of our lives can be great, and we like put the spotlight on that, but there's always something over there that we're struggling with. So I'm curious, for you, what kind of scriptures or prayers or anything, what kind of helps you have hope and stay focused on God and stay, I guess, close to Him through this?
One of my life verses is Jeremiah 29:11. For I know the plans I have for you, says the Lord, is to give you a hope and a future, never to harm you. That's a verse that I received just very early on my walk with the Lord, like 25 years ago almost, I would say. And that has always been like a rock on which I stand every time I'm going through a difficult time, because the Lord uses that to remind me that He's got it. He has my life into His hands. He's in control. And even with what we are facing in my family, there are times when things are just so difficult and so sad that it's just like a light to run to that verse and know that I need to trust God, that He has everything in His control. So I'm very thankful for that verse that God often uses to just strengthen my faith.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned the word received, that you received that verse, and you said, the Lord uses this to bring you comfort. And I love that there's a person behind it. It's not just an inspirational quote that you go back to that gives you hope. It's not the words. It's the God behind the words. It's the fact that God spoke them and He gave them to you. And I love that. It was subtle in there, but I wanted to bring that out because I love that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Now, something you mentioned before this interview that I wanted to ask about, because I think this is something else that many women struggle with. You mentioned to me that you really want to be married, and as of right now, you haven't found someone yet to be married to. So what I would love to hear, because I know a lot of women are in that spot, is just what your mindset is, especially towards God. But with that particular situation, how do you lean on God, and how do you stay focused on God and hopeful in Him when you also have this desire in your heart?
Awesome. Thank you. That's a very great question, because I've been praying for a life partner, for a husband, ever since I gave my life to the Lord. So that was like 25 years ago. And it's been a very interesting journey with lots of highs and lows. But I've seen God's faithfulness, of course, through it all. So I'm 48 now, and in my country, it's very unusual for a woman my age that is not married, and also that does not have a kid, like a biological kid. Because I have a daughter that I adopted. She's my brother's daughter, actually, but we've adopted each other ever since she was 6 months old, and she brings so much joy in my life. But in my country, so a woman my age that is not married is just looked upon as just, I don't even know how to describe it. It's like weirdest thing, because it's like there's no reason a woman my age shouldn't be married, because marriage is they feel like it's something so simple, so easy. It's so easy to find a husband. But for me, I've been on a very unique journey. I feel like God has it. Of course, He has a unique plan for each person, but really, for me, I feel like He really has a unique plan for my life, because I've been desiring to get married, and I've had a few opportunities, I could say, or proposals, but I never felt like it was the right thing. Some of my friends and family members, especially my mom, who are vocals and very outspoken, they would tell me like in my face that I'm the one that is a problem. They will say, you are too difficult, you are too difficult. That's why you're not married. And because they feel like my standards are so high. And maybe they are right, because a big thing for me is to find someone that is really serious with the Lord, that really has the fear of the Lord. And also that I feel like God has really put us together for that purpose. And sincerely, I feel like I haven't found it. I might be wrong, I don't know, but I feel like I haven't. So yeah, it's been difficult to have to explain it over and over and over and over again to people around me, just always asking, so why aren't you married? Like, even the kids that I teach sometimes, or the teachers that I train everywhere, that's one of the first questions that people will ask me, are you married? And when I say no, oh my goodness, why? What's wrong with you? Why are you difficult? It's your fault. And so it's been tough at times to have to answer those questions. But God has been so good to give me grace and peace, and really I'm not like what's the word? I'm not depressed over it. That's a miracle, actually, because really I should be depressed from things that people tell me all the time, especially my mom, whom I love so much, and I know she loves me, but she is always saying, oh my goodness, why are you not married? What's wrong with you? You need to get out there and find someone. And so once in a while I will answer, and I'll try to justify myself and explain things, and sometimes I'm just too tired. I'll just listen to her and just let her talk. So I'm just thankful, because I feel like God has given me so much grace. But I have to say, this is that I think part of it is the amazing Christian friends that God has surrounded me with, like my missionary friends and my church friends who really understand what I'm doing and why I'm waiting and trusting the Lord. They have supported me, they have prayed for me, they have encouraged me at times when it's tough. So I feel like God has used that to really encourage me, because otherwise, I don't know, I'd probably be, maybe very depressed or something. But yeah, I trust God. I know that nothing is impossible for God. If that is will, it will happen. And if that's not His will, it's wonderful, because the thing I want the most is to be in God's will, just have His will be fulfilled in my life. So it's not just having this or that, but just really what He wants from me. Of course, He knows my heart's desire. I'm not going to lie that I desire that, but I want him more than I want anything else in the world. So one side of that is that, like I said before, a woman that is not married is just looked upon as like very unvalued woman. But worse if she doesn't have a kid. So in my country, it's like, okay, we understand that maybe you're not married. Why don't you have children? You can just go ahead and find a good, I don't know, a decent guy and just have children with, you know? And I'm like, yeah, I don't want to have children just with anybody. I want to have children with my husband. And that's something that they don't understand. They even would quote the Bible, like my mom, even today, just a few hours ago, she was in a conversation, she was saying that even the Bible says that you guys need to go and multiply. Why aren't you multiplying yourself? I'm like, oh my goodness. So it doesn't work like that. I need to find a husband first before I multiply, and they don't understand that. So before I used to be angry once in a while at my mom and at people who say things like that. But more and more, I'm really understanding that they just don't get it, and it's not their fault. They need a revelation. So yeah, it's been an interesting journey. I trust God. He knows what he's doing, and he can do anything, however, for life.
Yeah, I commend you for upholding those standards and staying true to your faith, true to the Bible, what it says, because that's not easy. And I mean, I'm not anywhere near that age or that stage of life, but I know that to be staying true to those standards for so long is nothing to brush off. It's nothing easy. So I commend you for that, and I'm so thankful that God has put people in your life to encourage you and to keep you strong in that, because that is what God is asking of you. And my favorite thing you said was, you just want it to be his will, whatever it is. You have desires, but more than what you want God's will. And I think that's what makes each of the women I get the chance to talk to just so beautiful, is that they just want God's will. So yeah, thank you. Now, the last thing I want to talk about with this, with our time today, is the state of the church around you. This is something I love asking women from all sorts of different areas just to get their perspective. What I'm learning is there's something a little bit wrong with the church in every place you go to, and that's just the nature of it. Is we're in a spiritual war, and we're full of our own sinful nature, and so there's always going to be something that isn't the way it's supposed to be. But I do love hearing your perspective and just knowing what I can be praying for the church in your area. So for you in Cameroon, what have you observed about the church, and what would you say kind of marks it? What characterizes it?
Thank you. So, I gave my life to the Lord, like I said, 23 years ago. And at that time, I started going to a Pentecostal church, because before I was Catholic, and like I said earlier, we have the Catholics, we have the Protestants, and we have the Muslims. And the bigger group is the Catholics. They can make I would say maybe 40% of the population, 40 to 50% of the population. And then the next 25 to 30% of the population is the Protestants. And that's with different groups in the Protestants. So Baptists, Presbyterians, Pentecostals. And then you have 20% of the population that is Muslims. So the church, meaning the Catholic and the Protestants, they make more than half of the population of Cameroon, around 70% of the population of Cameroon. So you would think that we are pretty Christianized, You would think that people are really living for God, because there are churches everywhere. We have so many churches. Churches have grown in buildings, There are lots of buildings, and even people going to churches. And from what I have observed, also with things getting harder and life getting more difficult, people are seeking for answers, and somehow they feel like they can find the answer in the church. Also because of all the messages that have been preached all over about a God that saves and that gives and that blesses to have money, to have health. And so people are running to churches because they are looking for that. But then, from what I have observed, it seems like the full gospel is not preached. It's limited in a God that saves, but it doesn't go deep to the Lord, to the God that wants to be Lord over our lives. So the church is full of people that are just there to receive from God, to be healed, to be blessed, and all that. But then you don't see the transformation in the daily lives. So that's why in the same time you will see the country just being more corrupt and lots of, just debauchery and things like that, which is very contradictory to the church growing. So it's sad for me to see that. And something that is also difficult is in the Pentecostal church, which is known to be like the very, the very alive church, They have focused the messages more on the prosperity side also. Just come to God and you will have a lot of money and you will find jobs, you will have whatever you want, and also they don't go deep. So that's a struggle that I feel like the church is having. But yeah, besides that, every Sunday you will see all the churches filled with people and very loud and lots of that's something very fun. I kind of like that also in Cameroon is lots of loud praise and worship at church and very vibrant messages. So that's good. But then the sad thing is that sometimes it doesn't go deep. So that's also a prayer request, is that God will provide like a revival within the Pentecostal church to go deep the messages.
Yeah, that's what I feel like I'm seeing a lot, is there's this hope and joy and life alongside this this threat, almost this obstacle or thing that can take it down. And you've just gotta, I think prayer is our best weapon, our best offense against the enemy. And so I'm thankful you brought up that as a prayer request, and we're actually going to finish with that. I would love to hear your requests for prayer for yourself, your family, and your country alongside your prayer for the church, just as we close out here, because really, when it comes down to it, that's the best thing we can do is pray. So.
Been wonderful. So one prayer request for my country is just for God to provide solutions for the war that we are facing right now. Because my country has 10 provinces or 10 regions. 8 regions are French speaking because we were colonized by France, and 2 regions are English speaking because they were colonized by England. So for the past 6 years, there's been tensions between the French region and the English region. The English region, they feel very marginalized and left out and things like that. So they have rebelled. And yeah, it's been very bad things that happen as a consequence. So just for God to intervene and help the government to be willing to take actions to bring solutions, lasting solutions also to that problem. Lasting and just and fair solutions to that problem. So that's one prayer request for my nation. For the church, like I shared before, that the church will go deep in the messages, that it will not stay at the surface, just sharing about a God that saves, that loves, that heals, but that we will actually disciple people that we are sharing the gospel with, telling them about the God that wants to be Lord over all their lives, that they need to surrender their lives. And also for unity, of course, unity in the church, because there's a lot of division. It's always a big threat. So that's for the church. For my family, I shared about my family situation right now. We are actually at the court, and it's just not very pretty to see. Just that God will bring healing, peace. He will give us the grace to forgive, and even me, because I'm Christian, and I need to not just say that I'm Christian, to be saying that I'm a Christian. That God will give me the grace to be different and to reach out. It's very, very difficult, but that He will to reach out and to extend forgiveness, and that people will also extend forgiveness and receive forgiveness. That reconciliation will happen. Yeah. And also for the salvation, of course, of all my family members, my mother and all my brothers and sisters, and my niece, Manuela. And I specifically want to pray for her. I specifically want to ask for prayers for her as she's turning 13 in a few days, in 2 weeks, in less than 2 weeks. And with all the challenges that it brings, that God will just help her to grow well, to be well as she's becoming a teenager, and that I will be a good mom to her. That's for her. And for myself, just God's grace with all the responsibilities He has given me within my family and in ministry, and with my daughter Manuela, and that I will just continue to grow in my love and understanding of Him, and of course that if it is will that He will provide a husband for me. I always ask for that. I keep trusting Him that He's capable of doing that, providing good Christian guy. So, and last but not least, He's my provider as a missionary. I've been a missionary since 2002. That's 20 years this year, and He has always been faithful to provide. So I pray that He will continue to provide financially for me, and He will always renew my support group. So He's faithful, and I trust Him. But it's a prayer request.
Yes, amen. Certainly we'll be praying for that. Thank you for sharing for those requests. Thank you for sharing those stories, and thank you for sharing your time and heart with us. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. I was so blessed. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Adorned Women podcast. If you enjoyed what you heard here, then follow us on our Instagram for even more great content all week long. Our handle is @AdornedWomen. You can also visit our website at www.adornedwomen.com. And of course, join us again next week as we connect with another sister in Christ and learn so much from her life of faith. Have a great week, and we'll see you next time.